In recent months, a process has begun to take shape in the world that is increasingly discussed in closed analytical circles, but is still not fully understood at the level of the broader audience. We are talking about a new arms race that is unfolding right now, yet looks completely different from all previous ones. This is no longer a classic confrontation between states, not just an increase in military budgets, and not only a demonstration of power through the quantity of equipment. This is a transition to a new model where technologies, algorithms, and companies that until recently had no direct connection to the defense industry begin to play the key role. And among these companies, one name is mentioned more and more often: Samsung. At first glance, this may seem unexpected because Samsung is smartphones, televisions, home appliances, chips, a brand associated with the everyday life of billions of people. But if you look deeper, it becomes clear that this company has a much more complex and less public side. Samsung is one of the largest semiconductor manufacturers in the world, a company that controls a huge segment of the global computing infrastructure, and this is precisely what is becoming a key element of modern warfare. According to several analytical sources at once, including Bloomberg, The Information, and reports from South Korean research centers, in recent years, Samsung has significantly increased its investments in areas that directly intersect with the defense sector, including artificial intelligence systems, real-time data processing, sensor technologies, and energy-efficient computing platforms. And if earlier this was considered exclusively as the development of civilian products, today another version is increasingly being voiced, namely that these technologies could become the foundation of a new generation of weapons. It is important to understand that Samsung already has experience in the military sphere, as at one time through its Samsung TechWin division, the company created one of the most successful artillery systems of modern times, the K9 Thunder, a 155mm self-propelled howitzer that is still considered a benchmark in its class and is used by the armies of different countries, combining automation, precision, and mobility. And this project became proof that Samsung is capable of creating complex combat systems and not just electronics. After the sale of its defense division, many perceived this as a final exit from the military industry. But as insiders note, this could have been a strategic move because Samsung did not leave the technologies that underlie modern weapons. On the contrary, it focused on the most important things: computing, artificial intelligence, and sensors. That is on what is becoming the brain of any modern combat system. And right now, against the backdrop of growing global tension, signals are increasingly appearing that Samsung may return to the defense sphere, but in a completely new format. Not as a manufacturer of individual units of equipment, but as a developer of intelligent platforms that determine the behavior of equipment on the battlefield. According to sources close to the South Korean defense industry, the company is involved in a number of projects related to the creation of next-generation systems, including advanced armored vehicles, meaning tanks, but not in the traditional sense, as these are no longer just armor and a gun, but integrated systems where every component is connected to software and every action is supported by algorithms. Such a tank can be viewed as a computing center on tracks, receiving data from dozens of sources including satellites, drones, and ground sensors, analyzing the situation in real time, identifying threats, proposing courses of action, and in some scenarios being capable of making decisions independently, which radically changes the very logic of warfare. And here the key role is played precisely by Samsung, because it is companies like this that are capable of creating the infrastructure on which such systems are built, namely the semiconductors on which the algorithms run, artificial intelligence platforms that process data, sensors that collect information. All of these are areas where Samsung is already one of the global leaders. If we look at a potential next-generation tank, several key features can be identified that distinguish it from everything that exists today. First, it is full digital awareness, where the vehicle sees the surrounding space in 360 degrees and not only detects objects, but recognizes, classifies, and tracks them dynamically. Second, it is the minimization of the crew's role, as in some scenarios the crew may be completely absent and control is carried out remotely or through autonomous systems. Third, it is integration into a unified network where each unit of equipment is part of a common information field. It is precisely this concept that is now being discussed in analytical reports as the foundation of future warfare, because the winner is not the one who has more equipment, but the one whose decision-making system works faster and more accurately. And in this sense, Samsung finds itself in a unique position, as the company does not just produce components, but is capable of creating an ecosystem that unites all elements into a single whole. Against this background, it becomes clear why technology giants are becoming increasingly involved in defense development, as according to Financial Times and Reuters, similar processes are taking place in other companies working in the field of artificial intelligence and computing. But Samsung stands out because it combines several key directions at once, including chip manufacturing, AI development, and experience in creating complex engineering systems. And if this trend continues, the world may face a situation in which the largest technology companies will play no smaller a role in the military sphere than traditional defense corporations, fundamentally changing the architecture of global security. Because now the question is not only who has more tanks or aircraft, but who has better algorithms, faster processors, and more accurate data analysis systems. And this is exactly where Samsung may become one of the key players of the new era. For now, this has not been officially announced and remains at the level of leaks, analytics, and indirect confirmations. But if all the facts are put together, the picture begins to form into something much larger. Samsung has already been in the defense industry. Samsung controls critically important technologies. Samsung is increasing investments in areas directly related to military systems. And if we add the current global situation to this, it becomes clear that we may be at the beginning of a process that in the coming years will completely change the understanding of how military equipment is created and used. And if this is indeed the case, then the moment when technology giants finally become part of the arms race may have already arrived. This is not just about the development of a specific type of equipment, but about the formation of an entirely new architecture of warfare, where Samsung could potentially take the role not just of a participant, but of a system integrator. According to insider information, scenarios are being discussed in which the company is not limited to supplying components or individual solutions, but creates entire digital platforms that integrate armored vehicles, drones, satellite systems, and ground infrastructure into a single network. This means that the tank of the future is no longer an isolated unit, but part of a large-scale ecosystem where each machine constantly exchanges data, updates its model of the environment, and adapts to changing conditions literally within seconds. And if these technologies really move beyond laboratories, this could lead to a situation where traditional concepts of the battlefield simply cease to exist, because the speed at which decisions will be made will be unattainable for humans. And it is precisely in this scenario that it becomes clear why companies like Samsung are increasingly being viewed not just as technology suppliers, but as potential architects of a new military reality.